Welcome to Known the Podcast. We're Brooke,
Hannah, and Mackenzie,
3 friends whose goal is to go deeper into the Word
and to learn about the God that meets us in our everyday lives.
So let's sit, talk, and laugh together as we explore the extraordinary in the ordinary
and discover what it means to know God,
know ourselves,
and make Him known.
Okay,
Okay.
Frito Lay.
Flavor mix.
Is that too corn chippy?
Oh, okay. We've gone to a place.
Wow, we got there fast too. That's 20 seconds in, y'all.
That's a record. I love it.
So, Hannah mentioned that she's heard on, is it some podcast? Tell us how you thought of this.
Well, great question. I think I did hear it on a podcast once. It was popular on the internet a long time ago.
The www dots.
The www dots, the .coms, the
HTTP.
The hub.
My parents used to tell me that I had to type in http / www and then type in the website.
That's hilarious.
That is so cute.
Yep.
I love that.
I wonder how many people thought that.
I wonder how many people are still doing that.
Or
there
maybe,
have to be some.
Maybe it was just the www dot. I think my dad told me that I had to do that every time.
It used to be.
It probably
used
was
to
like
be
that.
The www dot,
Uh-huh.
and then
World Wide Web.
If you think we sound ancient, count it as wisdom.
Count it as 27.
Okay, so we're gonna rank
Yeah.
from this flavor mix pack,
Mhm.
right?
We have 6 flavors.
Okay.
I'm just going to read them in the order they are in this photo.
Let's hear them.
Mm-hmm.
Lay's sour cream and onion. Lay's barbecue. Cheetos crunchy.
Mm.
Doritos Cool Ranch. Doritos nacho cheese. And Fritos chili cheese. We want to know your ranking. So
We
tell
do.
us.
Tell us. And tell us if it matches up with any of us and if it's frustrating you, our ranking.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have stronger opinions on this? All right. I can give my rundown.
Okay,
Okay.
let's hear it.
I'm going to hit a hot number 1 with barbecue.
Oh.
Okay.
A strong choice, I know. I didn't realize barbecue was my favorite chip until I was 18, standing in a Subway, and my brother reached over and handed me a bag of barbecue chips. I looked over at him and I said, "How did you know I was going to get those?" He goes, "It's your favorite kind of chip." Known on the podcast.
Wow.
So I'm hitting barbecue number 1. Number 2, I'm going Doritos Cool Ranch.
Oh, over the cheese.
I am.
Interesting.
Wow.
And I'm going a 3 with a sour cream and onion.
You're wrong.
Okay.
4, Dorito nacho cheese. 5, Frito chili cheese. And Cheetos crunchy wrapping up in last.
Wow. I feel like that is pretty controversial.
I do too.
That was wild to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not that I don't.
If you think about it in your heart of hearts, Cheetos aren't that good.
It's been so long since I've had any of these chips.
Not me. I love me some Red 40. I've decided that. Learned it.
I've decided that.
I have to be careful with it.
So your top 2 are going to be, I've seen you eat barbecue chips and Cheetos,
Mm-hmm.
but then I know that you like Doritos because we've talked about it.
They are my weakness.
I love Doritos.
I love Doritos.
Okay, so mine. Oof. Okay. Here's the thing. I eat with my heart, depending on what I'm feeling.
I eat with my heart.
is what I want, right? Okay. So it really depends on my mood. These could be ranked different every time.
That's true.
But first out, Cheetos. No, Doritos.
It's like, wow, you're wrong.
Doritos, the nacho cheese. And then Cool Ranch.
Oh, straight Doritos at the top.
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
double Dorito. And then maybe the chili cheese Fritos, even though the barbecue ones are better. The barbecue, I think it's honey barbecue. You know?
Yes, the twisted.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But that's not on
I've
the
never
list.
had these. I'd probably love them.
Those are
You
good.
would.
Yeah.
It's
'cause
a part of
barbecue.
Zach's weird lunch concoction.
Yeah.
Zach is a man of concoctions.
Mm-hmm.
It is.
Yep.
He gets this almost every time we take a car trip, and I'll always grab a couple. So that is the chip that I've had recently, which is probably why I'm thinking about it. And then, what else do I have left? Okay, so then I'm probably going barbecue, sour cream and onion, and then I'm going to copy Hannah and put Cheetos last, which I feel like I'm going to get some heat for, but I can't think of what a Cheeto tastes like right now. It's been so long since I've had one.
Red 40. I had a bag of Cheetos with your mom the other day.
Yes.
She said, I'm only eating these because you did. I said, okay.
That's funny. Okay, give us yours, Brooke.
Okay. Doritos nacho cheese.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime they're around,
They're it.
they're it.
Yeah.
This is difficult for me because I am a chip girl. I love a crunch.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going with, if I was at a barbecue,
Mm-hmm.
what would I want next? I'd go barbecue.
Okay.
So nacho cheese, barbecue. Probably the Cheetos, the crunchy.
Okay.
No. In the top 3, Brooke?
I know. I didn't used to be this person.
Wow.
Yeah. My palate's changed. Don't they say your taste buds change every 7 years?
Every 7 years, yeah.
Yeah. I wouldn't have said this 7 years ago. This is so hard because I do like the Fritos chili cheese. I don't want to put them last. Okay, I'm going Doritos, nacho, barbecue, Cheetos, Cool Ranch, Fritos, sour cream and onion.
Okay.
Okay.
I agree. I feel like at a different time, that's what I would rank.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
If Funyuns were on this list,
They would be
top 3.
They would be top 3 for me too. They would be right under, probably right under both the Doritos for me, honestly.
Mm-hmm. They'd probably be my third pick.
Yeah. Yeah, me
I
too.
love Funyuns and Pepsi. That was like a combo.
Oh,
That was my
okay.
mom's high school snack. She told me
Really?
about it growing up, how when she was in high school, she'd have Funyuns and wild cherry Pepsi.
Wow.
And then one day we got it and tried it, and she's like, it's not as good as it used to be. So I've always thought of Funyuns as being disappointing, not based on my own experience,
But
but
based
hers.
on that, that's
Yeah.
that's so funny.
Yep.
Yeah, my ballpark snack a lot of times was like Doritos and a Mountain Dew,
Mm-hmm.
something like that. Yeah.
Mountain Dew Icy was my high school breakfast.
Oh,
Yeah. Mountain Dew Icy and a chocolate muffin.
Yeah.
what a way to start the day.
Yeah. Talking about some protein.
I do find that so funny every time you mention that.
The
Just-
Mountain Dew Icy.
And yeah.
Yeah.
And like you mentioned that you used to have like that and chocolate muffins every day for breakfast. I'm like, wow,
Who is she?
crazy.
Yeah. Don't
Taste
know her.
buds changing every 7 years.
Ugh, don't remind me. It'll be my 10-year high school graduation anniversary next year, like next May.
Wow. Will you go to your will you have a reunion?
If I have one, I'll probably go.
I wouldn't.
I would never in my life go to a high school reunion.
Okay, you're both
That's the-
homeschooled. You don't know.
Maybe that's it. But I did move. Okay. Let me use a different example.
Okay.
Because we moved a lot when I was in like middle school.
Mm-hmm.
And if I were to have a reunion of all the people that I lived with in Florida or in North Carolina, yeah, I'm not going. I'm too introverted to have that many small talk conversations
Yeah.
and feel like sized up by every person in the room. Like, no.
Yeah.
I have no interest in
I would
that.
not have a good time.
This is so shocking to me that I'm the one that said I would go.
I'm so surprised you said you would go.
I know.
Yeah. I was a theater kid. All of my, we were a tight-knit community.
Ooh.
What a segue. Just kidding. No, we were we were all tight, and we were with each other 4 years at a time. So
Okay. That
Yeah.
makes sense. If I had the opportunity to do like a reunion with like some people that I played sports with, I would. I'd go back and see them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. So think of it that way. I would go back and talk to all of the people I was in choir with, and I did 4 musicals with a handful of those people all 4 years.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah.
Crazy. So what are we talking about today? Oh, also, hey, hi, hello. We missed that. We just jumped right in.
To Frito.
Too
Thanks.
excited to rate the chips.
Sponsor us.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't know the morals of your company, so probably not.
I don't know your ethics, but if you're ethical.
You wish you could sponsor us.
Yeah.
Send us an email if you're ethical. Known the podcast.
If you're ethical.
This is really a moment of self-reflection for you, Fritos.
True. Wow.
I can't focus because I got a notification from Marco Polo. Oh, okay. We have to talk about Marco Polo at some point in the next couple of episodes because
It'll come up in this one.
It
I'm
will.
Sure.
That notification said Hannah is talking. Hannah's sitting right next to me.
I was actually not talking. You were talking. You were the star.
Okay, so today we're doing our first book review
Ooh.
on the pod. So exciting.
So exciting.
Yeah. So as a church, our eldership team decided that we should do the gospel-centered community for our summer teaching series.
Mm-hmm.
And it was available to all of the church body just to have a copy of the book and to take it into your families and your communities outside of the church. So we read it as a church staff. And so we basically just took a chapter each week for the last 9 weeks, read a chapter out loud, got super convicted.
Every
and
week.
Every week.
Yeah.
This is one of, so this one will probably be called the Blue Book.
Yes. Yeah.
And then if you haven't read the Green Book, The Gospel-Centered Life, you should also read that one. We'll link both of them in the show notes below. I don't know if I've actually gone through The Gospel-Centered Life.
Okay, when I joined the staff at Trinity, they were going through that book. So you
Okay.
did.
I would have just missed it because you had been there for a few months before I started coming back to staff meetings.
Yeah. I don't think you were there.
Yeah, I wasn't there for that.
You weren't there when I first started?
Mm-mm.
Wow.
We don't have to work this out now. We could. You can do a little snip of that. Post it.
Post. Doesn't matter. I've read through half of it because in our staff meetings, we will pick a book or some type of study and we'll all go through it together just for like relational and community building between the staff. And you guys were reading The Gospel-Centered Life, which is the Green Book, when I first joined. And I think that I joined like halfway through that book. So I've read half of it.
Okay.
And then the young adults group has used it to base some of the sermons off of. And we have made it through about the first half of the book. So altogether,
You've made it.
You've
in
read?
a roundabout way. I've read a lot of it, and it's very, very good.
Yeah.
Basics of the gospel, for sure. Yeah. Definitely worth the read, especially if you're a new Christian.
Yeah.
But there's stuff to get out of it, even if you've been in the faith for a little while.
Especially like this one, so Gospel-Centered Community, as mentioned before, convicted every single chapter.
Yeah.
Like there's just something in it all across the board because basically what the book is doing is explaining how the gospel transforms us, and then through that it also transforms our communities whenever we allow the gospel to work through us.
Yeah.
Which really just means us living by the word of God.
Yeah.
And then what that looks like relationally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Something I love about these books is The Gospel-Centered Life and Gospel-Centered Community. They are both about 100 pages long, if that. And like we said, 8 or 9 weeks. And the chapters are super short and easy to like understand and digest. So it's a great book if you're just getting started meeting with someone, or if you're discipling someone, or if you want to do a quick Bible study with your spouse, but you don't have hours and hours.
Yeah.
You know, it's a great intro to leading studies. It has questions in there for you and everything. So if you're looking for something like that, this is a great place to start when you're meeting with somebody.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah.
So what's it about? Practically, what have you learned?
Oh man. So my prep time for this, I basically just like skimmed back through every chapter and kind of highlighted key points that I remember.
Okay. I prepped by reading the last chapter of the book right before we started recording.
Perfect.
So
I did that on a break today as well.
I finished.
Yes. I read another book.
Another
Beautiful.
book down for the year.
Another
Amazing. Me and Brooke were on vacation when the staff read the last chapter, so we had to
catch up.
But it was so good.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
just so practical. I think it breaks it down like the first 3 chapters are foundation in community, I believe.
Yeah, the foundation of the gospel-centered community.
And then the last half is the fruit of gospel-centered community.
Wow.
So what it looks like in action.
So I was thinking earlier about this book and the sermon series and all the discussions we've had. And this is something that the Lord is just highlighting to me personally over and over through this book. And it just every week I've been convicted of it. So I want y'all's thoughts, because from my remembrance, in every chapter of this, pretty much it points back to an issue with community is tied to a lack of faith.
Yes, that's what I was going to mention too, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, like this idea that if you are disconnected from community out of pride, out of insecurity, out of self-centeredness or lack of effort, out of fear of being hurt or whatever the issue is, all of that ties back to this idea that God is not enough for you, or that he is incapable of guarding and healing any hurts that may happen in community, or the idea that this isn't important to him.
Yeah.
I think we have a big issue with that in our culture of kind of the whole, it's just me and Jesus and I don't need anything.
Yeah.
I think we totally see that with the attack on the church as a whole, because I hear a lot more of people talking online and things about how they've been hurt in church and not how they've been healed in church.
Yes.
And so I think that's kind of the narrative, and the idea that withholding of ourselves from community isn't just a you and I issue. It's an us and Jesus issue. And so that's just something I've been thinking about over and over and I've talked on the podcast before about how vulnerability can be difficult for me. And just the Lord kind of reminded me, like, is that due to a lack of faith? Like, I'm just holding all of these things that I've thought and felt up to the Lord and asking him, like, okay, how do I need to change how I view you?
Yeah.
And how can I ask you to and submit to you building my faith in this? So what are y'all's thoughts?
Yeah, I think that's so good. That was actually the main point. The only thing that I knew that I wanted to say was that it's that every chapter for me was definitely a realization of, oh, if I feel this way, the root of that is unbelief and not trusting the Lord. Like every single sin that was mentioned in this book, like not being honest or not being vulnerable, whatever the topic of that chapter was on, it all connected back to unbelief. And I definitely would say that, like, I'm more of a skeptic at heart. Like, I'm more prone to unbelief. It's just the way that God made me in a way. Like, I just don't trust very easily, and it's something that I have to work on. It took me a long time to accept even my faith in general. Just, I was like, why are there so many other religions that believe different things? Like, what's actually true?
Yeah.
So it's not only a skeptic in, can God protect me? But at the beginning of my journey of trying to figure out what I believe was like belief. It's like, what's true? And I definitely like what you said about just society. The narrative is like, I need Jesus and that's it. Like, I don't need to be in community. But really, a big idea of this book is when we're in community, like, we're shaped to be more like Jesus. We think about all of the fruits of the Spirit, all of those connect in community. Like, I can't, me, myself, and I can't really be forgiving, you know? Like, I have to exercise that within community. I can be patient with myself all day long. Put me in community, that's when I actually have to exercise this to grow in the character of Jesus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of the things that I had written down from one of the chapters was the antidote to false belief and false sources of hope and trust is worship. It is by worshiping God in spirit and truth that our hearts relax their grip on false beliefs and idols.
Yeah.
So whenever we're worshiping the Lord, so what does that look like? Whenever our hearts and our minds are directed towards Him throughout the day through prayer, whenever we're intentionally taking time to be in His Word and to spend time with Him, to journal, to write, to think, to meditate, to sing, whatever that looks like, that is where, like, our antidote to the false belief comes from. And that is such a huge theme throughout this whole book, is really self-awareness. And how sometimes a lack of self-awareness can kill community within your city, or even just within your church, but also within, like, your city or your workplace or whatever that looks like. Because if you're being prideful and arrogant in the workplace, you're killing community. And if we're Christians in the workplace, we are to reflect Christ at all times. Something they mention at the beginning of this book is, like, God Himself is 3 in 1, and the Trinity is community. And if we are image bearers of God, then we too are created for community, for a purpose.
That's so good. So we're created for community, right? I think this book proves it and the Bible proves it. So it's definitely what I believe. And then if you think about, okay, so if this is truth, if this is what the Bible says, and it's who we are and who we are meant to be and act out day to day, it's like, of course, the enemy wants to keep us from being in community, from being authentic and vulnerable and just everything who we're called to be.
Like you're saying, this part of chapter 3 says, I need others to help me see my sin and point me to the gospel, and they need me to do the same for them. Being in community shines a light on my need for change. I'll need to repent, believe, worship, and love many, many, many more times in community than I would if I could just be left alone to pursue Jesus and me.
That's so good.
Yeah, we have to have one another to support one another, to lead each other back to Christ. You know, the whole 3-stranded cord is not easily broken. And we also need each other. Iron sharpens iron for a reason, because when iron is sharpened, it's useful. It does its job. When we're separated from one another, we aren't able to become sanctified as quickly or as efficiently as we are in community. Because this is a tool that the Lord uses. Everyone who's married knows that the Lord uses marriage to sanctify you.
Yes.
And
if you don't know that, you're doing it wrong.
If you don't know that, I have news for you. And I think it's the same thing with community. I think sometimes people can look at community as being, or especially look at church as being something that is meant to make them feel good or to pour into them, and what can church do for me? When really the goal of the body of Christ is to be the hands and feet of Jesus to one another and to the world around us. It's much more about what we can do and how we can connect with those around us, and less about what I personally can glean out of this Sunday morning.
Yeah, that's so good, because, well, that also connects just to our culture, like the consumerism, like, what can I get out of this? You know, and so when you have a right view of community in church, like, you're going, okay, actually, how can I serve? How can I make this church and my community better by the gifts that the Lord has given me.
Yeah.
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 One thing that I wrote down while I was prepping for today was gospel-centered community leads to vulnerability, which leads to freedom.
Yeah.
And one of the exercises in the book, because we went through, I think this is the leader's book technically, and one of the exercises in it was to sit in your group and everybody think about like the one thing that you would never want anyone to know about yourself. And it was like, now imagine if you had to share that with somebody. Yeah. What's the absolute, I think it was like, what's the worst thing that they could say? What's the worst thing that could happen? Or something along those lines. And that was like just such a moment for me of like, wow, am I being vulnerable enough? Like I would deem myself as an open book for sure. I share all of my information, but there's still things that I know, like people don't know the thoughts that I have about myself and like the things that I think about myself whenever I'm stressed or, you know, just like the self-deprecation, you know?
Yeah.
I'm like, if people knew how I really saw myself, would they see me that way?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the enemy can keep us so trapped in that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why the Lord pushes us so strongly toward one another and toward community is because we are vulnerable to be attacked when we're alone. Yeah. I've seen it over, like if you are a believer that is completely separate from the church body, you fall into some weird stuff.
Yeah.
You get to a weird zone spiritually, or you start believing in things that aren't the true gospel. When we are alone, we are vulnerable. God calls us sheep for a reason. We're safer in a herd.
Yeah.
But I think because of that, there is such an attack on community, and there is such a natural bent in us since the fall to hide. Yeah. Such a bent toward shame and toward feeling rejection or rejecting others out of that fear, you know, or pride. And I don't want to go to a church, or I don't want to be a part of a community that doesn't, you know, check all of my boxes or whatever. Yeah. There's so many reasons that we can come up with why not to be a part of a good community or why not to create a community for ourselves. And I think we really have to take it to the Lord in prayer and ask Him to shape our view of what our community needs to look like in each season of our life, and then be willing to follow through on it. That's something that I can have a hard time with because I am naturally introverted, and I sometimes I just don't want to go out and do all the things and talk to all the people, and you know, like it just doesn't feel, especially having 2 young kids. I'm like, church is in the middle of nap time. No matter when nap time, no matter what your schedule is, community is always going to be inconvenient.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the effort of putting community as a pillar and as a value in your life and as a foundational part of your family is so beneficial. Yeah. Because when you go through the good times, you can celebrate with one another. And when you go through the times that crush you, you can be upheld by one another.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen that a lot this year. Just as our, our friend group, Zach and I have had like separate friend groups our entire marriage. And just within the last year or 2, we've had like a combined friend group, which has been new for us. And like just furthering our relationship with each other, our marriage with each other has been strengthened through our community and through like getting to do life with other people that are married in the same season as us. Yeah. And we're walking through the hard times with them. We're calling each other out when we need to be called out. We're also like trying to figure out how to resolve situations. Like it challenges you. And I think to some people that's really scary because confrontation is scary.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you are confronting people with the heart of Christ and the eyes of Christ and the truth of His word, it's automatically less scary.
Yeah.
Maybe. Depends on the situation.
I feel like it's still hard, but it can help give perspective on the situation.
Yeah, 100%. And I've had people come to me with things this year too of like, hey, you didn't really handle that super well, or you seem real weird. What's going on with you? And it's like, wow, people care about me. And like whenever you're not in community, it's easy to convince yourself that people don't care and they don't remember you.
Yeah, that's
or they
so
don't
good.
care.
Yeah, because if you just like think about the extreme of the personality, like I'm just going to sit at home and wait for someone to text me.
Yeah.
Like we're all so busy. Like you just have to put yourself out there in that way. And you don't have to, like, we're not sitting here telling you to go deep with every single person that you meet. I mean, if you want to and that's your thing, like do it.
Yeah.
But if you're someone who has a hard time with community, like really try to find your couple people or really try to find one person and just be like, hey, this is what I'm dealing with. Like, what's going on with you?
Yeah.
You know?
I do want to speak to that for a second, too, because I've been in that place of, like, if people cared, they'd reach out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I understand that thought process. But I also do want to tell you that that is a lie from the enemy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because he wants to keep you where you're at, and he wants to keep you alone. Because if he can keep you alone, he can convince you of anything.
Yeah.
So we're either vulnerable in our communities and we're uplifted by them, or we're vulnerable to the enemy.
Oh, that's good.
That's so good. Yeah, that's so
good.
But
if you are having a hard time, thank you. If you're having a hard time with reaching out to people, feeling like you're always the one that reaches out first or whatever it is, first of all, I want you to know that you are seen and you are heard. And I am so sorry that you're walking through that. But it is still worth seeking out community. And it's still worth putting yourself out there. Because the Lord himself is in community. And we are to be too.
Yeah.
One of the things from chapter 5 that really stuck out to me was the conclusion is clear. God's people ought to be consistently, recognizably, resolutely joyful.
Yeah.
And there's a whole chapter in this book about having joy and a heart of joy as a Christian. I'm just going to read a couple excerpts from this one because I feel like it's important.
Yeah.
So this is all on page 54. It says, if our churches aren't biblically literate, or if they aren't missionally effective, making disciples, or if they aren't growing, those are issues we think are worth talking about. But a lack of joy, what's the big deal? And then it goes on to say a quote from Martin Lloyd-Jones. It says, Christian people too often seem to be perpetually in the doldrums and too often give this appearance of unhappiness and of lack of freedom and absence of joy. There is no question at all but that this is the main reason why large numbers of people have ceased to be interested in Christianity. In a world where everything has gone so sadly astray, we should be standing out as men and women apart, people characterized by a fundamental joy.
I love that.
That's convicting.
It's so convicting.
Yeah.
And I immediately thought of when I read this the first time was when I moved back to Knoxville. After really finding my faith and like I was talking about earlier, really figuring out what I believed. And everybody was just like, wow, you've changed. Like, you're so joyful. Like, that's what multiple people told me that. I'm like, in my head, I was the same person, but I was letting that, I was more joyful actually. And I was more okay with letting people see my emotions because before I was very closed off, didn't want anybody to know what I was thinking or feeling. And then after I accepted the Lord, I had more freedom to walk in who I actually am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's so cool. I love, it's not talked about enough.
No, it's not.
No.
Yeah. And I think that that's one of the things. So our friend group has a Marco Polo group chat. And we're reading Leviticus together right now. We have been for the last 3 days. And
it's going great, if you're wondering.
Yeah.
It's so
I did read
good.
it. I did. I wanted to sleep, but I read it. I read Leviticus.
Jackie Hill Perry read it to me today. So
Wow. What a
Wow.
gift.
if you don't know, on the Audible app, Jackie Hill Perry reads the Bible in ESV. It's so nice. You guys should go
I love
click
that.
on that.
You are obsessed with Audible right now.
I am. Yeah. I don't know what it is. On our car ride, from the beach, we were listening to podcasts and they kept recommending books. I was like, will you put that in my Audible? Will you put that in my Audible?
Yeah, and she was driving, so I kept going to save them. I had to wish list.
Why did I bring that up?
Leviticus, Marco Polo.
Probably Community through Marco Polo.
No, it was about joy. How did I get to Leviticus with joy?
There's more joy in reading Leviticus as a group.
I don't know. It left me. If it comes back to me, I'll just start talking about Marco Polo again.
Something I thought that was cool today is Catherine, who's in the group, was talking about how she thought that all of our different takes on Leviticus were based on like basically the lens through which we approach Leviticus, and all of our thoughts are coming through that kind of same lens.
Yeah.
How we approach,
individual lens.
Like our personalities. I haven't watched today. I'm behind. So.
Yeah. So she said mine was like truth based. Someone else's was grace based. You know, just these different viewpoints.
Yes.
Brooke's is very nutritionally based. That's what I noticed.
That's funny.
Yeah, because you did ask about the honey.
Yeah. No, she said yours was nutrition based.
No, she said she didn't know about Mackenzie because she's only given one thought.
Oh, yeah. And it was about honey. What did she say about mine? She said that it's very clear that I don't want to read it, so I'm just trying to think of something to say. I said that's probably true.
That's very funny.
But I didn't really feel like reading through Leviticus, to be honest. You know, I mean, all scripture is God-breathed and useful.
But it's a lot of
it's a lot of blood and guts.
It's a lot of blood and it's a lot of fat burning.
Yeah, it's a lot of that. And this,
we need some fat burning.
It's some cardio.
The holy kind, not the stair stepper kind.
We're so far gone. But as we've all been reading through Leviticus and talking about it, I have been surprised with how much we've come up with to talk about and how deep the conversation has gone. And it's definitely the most I've ever thought about Leviticus. Even though I've read it several times by myself, I've never done a Bible study on Leviticus. And I don't know if I would necessarily recommend you start there or go there.
That's funny.
But I do think that there's something like if you're stuck in your walk with the Lord, if you're stuck in, I just don't know how to go deeper with the Lord, or I don't know, I'm just reading this chapter over and over again, and I don't know why I'm reading it, and I don't have any, takeaway on it.
Yeah.
There's something very beneficial about pulling others into your time with the Lord and seeking the Lord 100%. Together.
Oh, for sure.
I think we talk about that with prayer, but I don't know if we talk about it as much with just discussion. There's so much wealth of information and wealth of perspective that is found with just discussing the things of God and discussing the Bible with one another. This is what we're called to do as the church and in our families.
Yeah.
You know, to keep these things to the forefront of our minds and of our lives. I just think that's another area where if it's great to be friends with unbelievers too, with the goal being their salvation. Yeah. But it's also important that we have these kind of oases, these pit stops where we can grow and fuel one another in the Lord.
Yeah, I feel like that's very like practical application too.
Yeah.
I don't remember why. I think that I had mentioned Leviticus killed me. I've mentioned that multiple times on the podcast as well. I think I mentioned that in our Marco Polo group, and someone was like, let's just read it every day together and just talk about it. I'm like, that's community. Yeah. That's why it's important. This is why it's important.
Yeah.
Yes. That's it. That's all I had.
I love that. Yeah, actually going back to joy, because I just had one more thought about it.
Okay.
And how, like, we are joyful even going through Leviticus. Like, we're in the videos in Marco Polo, like, we're laughing. And, like, I am behind. I haven't heard anything today. It was a very busy day for me, so I have not caught up. But I can't tell you how many times I've had the opportunity to share the gospel based on just people asking me like why I'm joyful or why I didn't get upset at a situation.
Yeah.
Or like whatever the case may be. I can't think of many opportunities that I've had that aren't people just noticing that I live a little bit differently and react a little bit differently, and they ask me why.
Yeah. I had a girl in beauty school that we had like crossed paths multiple times, never really talked, and then one day we were both put to work the front desk together, so like checking people out at the end of services and stuff. And she just started asking me questions, and she was like, "You believe in Jesus, don't you?" And I was like, "Yeah, I do." I was like, "How'd you know?" And she was like, "I mean, you I know that I've heard you talk about it," but she was like, "But I can just tell by the way that you carry yourself that's what you believe."
Yes.
And then that opened a whole door for me to like talk to her about the gospel. And she shared her testimony with me, which was, it's not my story to tell, but definitely one that like really touched my heart. And one I still pray for her to this day, every time that I think about her, because I'm like, the Lord sees her and knows her. Yeah. And so whenever you think about those, just your path crossing with anyone, I could have easily been like, we have nothing in common, I'm not going to talk to her, and went the opposite direction. But because I live in fear of the Lord, it allowed me to stay in that conversation. And that's not like a toot my own horn type of thing. It's more of just like, make yourself available to those around you. Yeah. And don't be shut off to conversation because of your own hurts and insecurities. That's really a huge part of this book, is dealing with ourselves so that we can be better in our communities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so good.
Another book I'm reading right now that is tied in so well with this book is The Fruitful Life by Jerry Bridges, which I know you may hear that if you're a faithful listener of the pod and say, Hannah, did you say you were reading that at the beginning of this year? Why, yes, I did. I'm actually doing a Bible study on it in community. And we're going through, it's my mom's group. And so we're doing one chapter a month because we all have little kids. We do a Zoom meeting at 8:30 p.m. after the kids are in bed.
That's so cool.
We talk through it. But seriously, if you are struggling with community or with vulnerability, relationships, any of those things, the gospel-centered community and the fruitful life, and read them together and just change your life. Yeah, change your heart, change your life. It really has been so influential for me doing these two back to back and kind of at the same time. So I can't recommend it enough.
Is that the red book you were talking about the other day?
No, that's what we're going to do next in staff meetings.
Cool. Okay.
This one has fruit on it. The Fruitful Life.
Perfect. Should be easy to find. We'll also link it in our show notes.
Yeah, I already have it written down.
Perfect. Wow.
She's
community. On top of it.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, so I am going to be this person because I am this person. I'm going to ask the deep questions.
Perfect.
So one of the chapters is called Community Barriers and Gospel Freedom. I feel like we kind of stayed there for a second in this episode.
Yeah.
I'm going to read the statements. And so basically this is like a follow through the statements, decide which ones you feel like you relate the most to.
Okay, yeah. Oh, that's another point I wanted to make about this book. There's a lot of little exercises like this that really go to like iron sharpens iron.
Yes.
Yeah. And it really makes you think about your actions in a way that's not condemning. It's just like more of a self-evaluation to like, oh yeah, this is me and this is not me, so I need to work on this type thing. Yeah.
Lots of opportunity for self-reflection.
Yes.
And if you haven't listened to the self-awareness podcast, go back and listen to that one because I feel like that ties in pretty well with this book.
Yeah.
But also just the importance of it. Okay, so page 33. Our goal is to apply the promises of the gospel. Wait, real quick. Do we want to go through this and then do we want to say what ours is? What is our barrier to community?
I'm fine with that. Are we
Live
picking one?
On the air? Yeah, I'd say let's just pick one.
Okay, cool. I mean, I could just say all of them probably, but let's read them and I'll figure it out.
Our goal is to apply the promises of the gospel to our lives as we read. So as a starting point, pause and ask yourself this question. What keeps me from experiencing deeper community? Which of the following answers is closest to the truth? I'm too busy. I can't invest the time it requires. I'm happy with the relationships I have. I'm not looking for new ones. I have boundaries. Don't push me. Sorry, I can't say that with a straight face. I would never say that in real life.
I have boundaries. Don't push me.
I'm so sorry if that's you. I'm not making fun of you.
It just doesn't fit with Brooke's personality. That's all.
Oh, these people aren't like me. There's a limit to how deep we can go. That is not me. Relationships overwhelm me. I don't have the capacity right now. If these people really knew me, I'm not sure they'd accept me. I don't want to inconvenience others by asking more of them. And if there's something else, think about it there.
That's good. It's also really hard for me to just pick one because I think at different times I can be a mixture of like, I don't have the time, relationships overwhelm me. Like today when I have like 40 unlistened to Marco Polos, I'm like, that's going to take me 2 hours to get through. And it's rough, but it's not an excuse. And then also a mixture of one of the last ones. If these people really knew me, I'm not sure they'd accept me.
That is all three of the ones that I was going to say.
Really?
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And I don't want to inconvenience others by asking more of them.
Yeah, those were my those were the 4 components to my community barrier smoothie.
That's good. Wow. So we all relate on that? That's crazy.
Wow.
That is wow.
Wow.
That was a moment.
We wouldn't have had this moment if we hadn't been in community.
If we hadn't, wait. If we hadn't done this podcast, which goes back to the fear like 7, if people really knew me, I'm not sure they'd accept me.
Wow.
Which was a big fear of starting this podcast.
Yeah.
Which goes back to known.
Which goes back
The
to
podcast?
The podcast? Question mark?
unbelief in the Lord to
Yeah.
protect me.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Or in the work that the Lord has done in me and is doing in me
Yes.
to make me a worthy vessel and someone who is a good representation of Christ and all of these things.
Yes.
Do we believe that we're not worthy of relationship because we don't trust the work that the Lord is doing and has done in us?
2 words. Imposter syndrome.
Cast it out?
Get it out. Yeah, that was really good, Hannah.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, I feel like I can definitely fall into that. Especially if I have like things that I'm hyperfixating on in my brain of like, I have to get this done. This is a responsibility that I'm feeling out, blah, 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 blah. And then I think if my friends knew this about me, would they think I'm a fake person? Would they think blah, 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 blah. It's like, wow, the enemy is sneaky, but not really.
But not really.
I know.
There's nothing new under the sun. It's all the same. That's all. Oh, that's a great point, actually. No, because when we talk about like our faults and how hard that is sometimes within community, we also get to relate and go deep on a level of we're all failures and therefore like makes the glory of God known.
Yeah.
Because like how much do we relate based on just like, oh, I messed up today, and the freedom to say that, and then the other person be like, yeah, I messed up in this too.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then you guys grow deeper in relationship, and then God gets glorified because he was the perfect sacrifice for us.
Yeah.
So good.
Preach. Both of y'all coming in with the snippets tonight.
You
Where
too.
is
You had that vulnerability
Oh,
hotspot.
oh yeah,
Hot
the
spot.
double vulnerability.
the double vulnerable. Hey guys, just say vulnerability 5 times fast and let us know how it goes for you.
Yeah, please.
You'll either be tongue twisted or convicted.
I can barely say it once.
That's a t-shirt.
That's good.
I don't really know what else to say. I think we just read the book. and tell us what you think. Read it with someone.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. Find a couple people. Be like, hey, you want to read a book with me? Because I want to read a book with you.
Say, I was listening to this podcast and they recommended this book.
Mm-hmm.
Would you like to go through it with me and see what we think? And then if you don't like it, you can say, well, I didn't pick it out. It's a podcast.
Easy. Done.
Easy.
But you
Blame
will
it
like
on
it.
us.
If you don't like it, you probably have some self-work to do.
Ooh. Ouch.
Ouch.
Sorry about it.
That's true.
Yeah. Also, 2 words. Not 2 words. Also, my brain keeps going like, thought stop. Think stop. And then it doesn't finish.
Yeah, I love that.
Also, if your excuse is that you don't have time to meet up with people, 2 words. Marco Polo.
Or a Zoom meeting at 8:30 p.m. once
There
a
you
month.
go.
There you go. I mean, everybody can make time once a month.
Yes.
You can make, yeah. I think we have to let go of our idea of perfect community in order to experience real community.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
let's just set down the expectations we have for other people and the expectations we have for ourselves and let people come into our messy houses and our messy lives and minds and just be honest with one another, because what you're searching for, you're not going to find only when it can be exactly on the terms you would like it to be.
That's good.
So I think we also have to like let the Lord reveal to us the expectations that we have on other people because of our lack of faith in him.
Yeah.
Or because we're not finding our identity in him, or because we're not resting in the work of salvation and we're trying to earn our salvation by the way that we act or whatever. Let's find those barriers. Let's find those sins, those things that we believe that are keeping us, and let's put them to death on the cross and instead commit to one another the way that we're called to. This is committing to the Lord over and over again as we commit to one another and submit to one another. All the one another's in Scripture are actually about the real people in your life, in your communities. They're not just because they sound nice at a wedding.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like we like to talk about love when it sounds romantic,
Yep.
but not when it sounds difficult
Or
and
messy.
not in community. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That's good, because no community is going to be perfect because we're all sinners, but community can help us transform ourselves into Christ, which is our ultimate goal of sanctification here on this earth.
Yep.
yeah, perfection is out, authenticity is in.
Beautiful.
And that's a wrap on Known the Podcast. Come back next week.
Go read your Bible.
Go read your Bible.
Read your Bible and this book.
Yes. Add it to your list. Okay, bye.
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 That looks so funny from this angle.
Both of us clapping.
Yeah,
We're
you
just
both
starting.
go.
Yeah, we never really. I was the one still thinking this one.
That was good. That felt great.
Got there.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
That's going to stay in. For sure staying in.